Artemis 1 used a maneuver called skip re-entry. Instead of diving straight into the atmosphere, the capsule first dipped in to shed velocity through aerodynamic drag. It then used its aerodynamic lift to skip back above the atmosphere, like a flat stone bouncing off a pond. After a brief coast in near vacuum, it dipped back down for a final descent. The advantage is precision, extending the distance the capsule can travel during descent to give mission planners flexibility in choosing a splashdown location. Apollo never had this. Skip re-entry was supposed to be the modern upgrade. Inside the avcoat, it was catastrophic. During the skip phase, when the capsule climbed back above the atmosphere, external heating dropped sharply. That triggered a chain reaction. Avcoat produces gases internally during ablation through pyrolysis, essentially burning without oxygen. Under sustained high heat, those gases vent outward through the porous char layer. The system is self-regulating, but when heating paused during the skip, the char layer became denser, less porous, less permeable. The avcoat underneath was still warm enough to keep producing gas. That gas had nowhere to go. Pressure built inside the blocks, and when the capsule plunged back for the second pass, those pressurized pockets ruptured, blowing charred material off the shield in chunks. There's a detail in the investigation that doesn't get talked about enough. Even with over 100 locations of unexpected char loss, the temperature inside the Orion cabin never exceeded the mid-70s Fahrenheit. The thermal performance exceeded expectations. The avcoat was doing its job blocking heat. The problem was that the material was tearing itself apart while doing it, and no one could predict where or how much would come off next. An ablative shield with unpredictable ablation is like a parachute that opens but might have random holes in it. It'll probably slow you down, you just can't be certain how much. NASA did not replace the heat shield for Artemis 2. The shield was already built, already bonded to the crew module, and replacing it would have added years to a program that had already slipped from 2024 to 2025 to 2026, through a cascade of technical delays, weather disruptions, and hydrogen leaks during dress rehearsals. Jared Isaacman, the NASA administrator who personally flew to orbit aboard a SpaceX Dragon on the Polaris Dawn mission and understands spaceflight risk from the inside of a pressure suit rather than behind a desk, reviewed the data and accepted the plan to fly as is. Instead of rebuilding, NASA changed the flight plan. The skip re-entry has been eliminated entirely. Orion will fly a steeper, more direct descent, hitting the atmosphere harder but for a shorter duration. No pause in the middle, no moment where trapped gases can accumulate and fracture the shield from within. The trade-off is significant. Higher G-forces, greater structural loads, more intense peak heating, a less flexible splashdown zone. NASA tested avcoat samples under the modified profile conditions in refurbished ArcJet facilities at Ames Research Center. They modeled scenarios where the heat shield lost far more material than Artemis 1 experienced, and in every simulation, cabin integrity held. The agency's own estimate for overall mission risk falls somewhere between 1 in 2 and 1 in 50. At the optimistic end, that's roughly a 2% chance of crew loss. At the other end, it's a coin flip. NASA's official threshold for acceptable risk on Artemis missions is 1 in 30. Rick Henfling is the lead entry flight director. His entire focus for this mission is getting the crew through re-entry alive. He runs the team in Houston that monitors every parameter of the descent in real time. Except during the most critical window, he won't be able to do any of that. That blackout has haunted human spaceflight since the Mercury program in the early 1960s. At hypersonic speeds, the plasma sheath absorbs and reflects radio waves across virtually every usable frequency band. No signal gets in, no signal gets out. For roughly 4 minutes during peak heating, Rick Henfling and every flight controller in Houston will sit at their consoles, staring at screens that show nothing, and wait. During those 4 minutes, sealed inside a capsule heated to the edge of its design limits, the crew will have nothing to do but trust the engineering and wait for the plasma to thin. In April 1970, the crew of Apollo 13 re-entered after their service module was crippled by an oxygen tank explosion. Nobody knew if the heat shield on the command module had been compromised by the blast. The expected blackout was 3 minutes. It stretched past 4, then 5, then 6. Gene Kranz and his team sat in total silence, watching a clock and a blank screen. When Charlie Duke finally heard Jack Swigert's voice cut through the static, the room broke. 33 years later, Columbia broke apart during re-entry on February 1st, 2003, because a piece of foam insulation had struck the thermal protection tiles on the wing's leading edge during launch, and nobody caught it in time. The crew never received a warning. Mission Control didn't know until the telemetry vanished and never came back. Heat shield failure during re-entry is not a theoretical risk. It has killed 7 people. There's something about re-entry that no other phase of spaceflight shares. Launch is violent, but it's a beginning, full of thrust and noise and the raw energy of leaving. The coast between Earth and the Moon is quiet. Wiseman told reporters during a live downlink that he watched the entire globe from pole to pole as the sun set behind it, and the way he paused mid-sentence made it clear the experience had outrun his vocabulary. But re-entry is a reckoning. The angle has to be exactly right. Too shallow and the capsule skips off the atmosphere and vanishes into deep space forever. Too steep and the G-forces or heating exceed what the vehicle and the crew can tolerate. The shield has to hold. The parachutes have to deploy in sequence. The cabin has to stay sealed. Everything happens in minutes, not hours, while falling at speeds that turn air into fire.